this is a really heavy story. So it's another one of those massacres. So I know there's a lot of massacres, but there's a lot that I report on, but it's a lot going on. So I just report on what's happening. Okay. So there was this group, a political group here. They're called Normalistas, and what they do is they try to normalize things. And when I say that, it means that they try to make everything equal for everybody. So when they see injustices and stuff like that, they try to go up against it. They saw a lot of bad things going on with Peña Nieto, the past president's presidency, and they wanted to try to impeach him and do this and that, and they were getting a lot of attention, and they were on the right. There's a lot of violations on the Constitution and things like that, and they pulled them up. And so they were really well organized, and they were starting to be well funded too, because people were starting to notice them, like I said. So they organized a trip to go to Mexico City to the president's White House, which is Los Pinos, and they were going to go protest everything he's done and what was going on, what was happening basically in the country with him. So they rented a couple buses, and they were leaving this part of the country in Guerrero. Okay, it's called Ayotzinapa, where they're coming from. Now they're known as the Ayotzinapa 43 because the 43 of them that disappeared, and they were all students. They were all people studying and going to school and going to university. So they took these bus. They were going to take these buses to Mexico City to protest Peña Nieto. Now they get in the buses, and they didn't know it, but they were infiltrated. Okay, Peña Nieto had already sent someone to infiltrate their group when they first started grabbing attention. So this is a common technique. The United States, the FBI did it with the Black Panthers and these groups and that groups. They'll infiltrate them and try to destroy them from the inside, and if not, they'll just give enough information up on them that their cause will be useless, because every time they try to do something, they'll get blocked. Okay. What ended up happening was these buses leave Guerrero. Okay, they leave Ayotzinapa and they get off on the highway. On the highway, they get stopped by a military patrol. This is confirmed 100% what happened. Okay, this is they're already trying to identify their bodies with DNA and stuff. So this is 100% people. The military took them off. Well, first they shot up the bus. The military shot up the bus because the bus driver didn't want to stop. He knew. He was probably part of their group, and he disappeared too, the bus driver. So I think they might have even just rented the bus and hired their own chauffeur, because they were really careful about about people giving inside information on what they're doing in their movements. So I'm sure he was part of their group, because they ended up killing the bus drivers too. The bus driver didn't want to stop, which says something. He knew that there was something wrong going on there. So when he didn't want to stop, they shot a couple windows out and stuff. Now one of these videos came out of them shooting up the bus. Okay, one of them escaped, and this video comes out, and you can see the bus is shot up, and it's getting they shot it up. Now when this first happened, they hit one of the students, and in the video you can hear him saying, "What'd you shot my friend? You shot my friend," this and that. And they really didn't care, the soldiers. Okay, what did they care? So they proceeded to put all these people in local police trucks as well as their trucks. All right, so they called for some local police to come, and they moved them to a second location. Now when they got to the second location where the road was over, they started marching them, these 43 people. Now once they got to a certain area in the hills, they executed them right there in the hills. The military did, the Mexican military, and they put them in mass graves, and they covered it up. And like I said, there's local police, okay, that helped them in this, complicit in this, and that's where some of this information comes from. One of them was later testified and showed where the graves are, and that's why they're being able to test for the bodies and stuff. What's going on right now? So the soldiers stopped this caravan of normalists, of these political activists, and executed them. Now why'd they do that? Because they were going to protest Peña Nieto, like I said. So what he did, he called ahead. He already had someone infiltrate the group. So he had someone stop the soldiers stop the political activists. He called his people in Guerrero. There's local politicians involved in this as well there. And they moved on the caravan, stopped it, executed everyone for him before they could get to Mexico City to protest him. Now, this is where the part about is the infiltration comes in. There was a guy. His name was Julio Cesar Lopez Patocelin. Patocelin. He was a military intelligence. He had a year working for him, and since he started working that year, he was working under the 50th Infantry Battalion in Chilpancingo, if I remember correctly. You guys check this out. I'm pretty 100% sure that's correct. And so he was working under this infantry battalion and is military intelligence. So they had him. He was the actual one who infiltrated this group. Okay? And he's part of that 43. So that's why this is interesting. This ties in. He's part of that 43. So what's that mean? That means they executed their own informant as well. On top of all the political activists, the 42 political activists, is 43 because he was part of that group. And his mom shows up in a video crying with all the other moms. And there's a general here, and it's probably the same general who ordered their execution, if you can imagine that. Is there talking to him, and he gives them a little bit of money to all the mothers because a lot of them depended on their sons to eat. You know, they're here in Mexico. That's how it is a lot of times. You know, the sons are taking care of the parents if they're sick or they're elderly or so on. In this case, she was there crying in front of this General Cienfuegos, and he gave her money, like I said, and he knew that her son was dead and that he was part of military intelligence. But they denied it all the way to the end, because if they admitted that they had someone on the inside, then they knew what was going on, didn't they? When these kids got executed. And I say kids because they were young. You know. They knew. They were complicit. And there he is giving the mom money and condolences, along with the other parents. And he's directly responsible for this guy and the other 42 guys' deaths. So it's crazy world. Now, what was happening was Peña Nieto, he knew, and he had political influence there in Guerrero. So there was organized crime was complicit in this as well, the local groups there. And the only reason anyone really knows about this, there's plenty of these massacres have gone down. But the reason you guys are hearing about this one is because all the parents got organized of these kids. They formed their own political activist group, but a lot bigger because they formed all the it wasn't just the parents, there's a lot of their family members as well. And they formed this huge group that went and protested in Mexico City. That's called the 43. And it gained so much popularity that when they were marching in Mexico City, there was probably like 100,000 people with them. It was huge. Maybe more. Okay, I shouldn't be quoting numbers. They're probably really small, what I'm saying. And so they marched, and it drew a lot of attention, so it completely backfired on the president. What he was planning was that he just kill these people, and their parents would forget about it or get scared, and the issue would disappear. It'd be swept under the rug. And it completely backfired because it completely blew up more. And this caught international attention now. And they ended up sending specialists from the United States to help identify these kids. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a lot of people, man. And they were all people who were studying, or they were going somewhere with their life. They were going a lot farther than I was, man, or I ever will. They were studying, they were doing the right thing in life, and it's sad to see someone snuff it out like that over, just political ambition. He was already the president. He couldn't get reelected again. You can only get elected here as president once. So I don't, he just didn't want to tarnish his reputation, I think. So instead of tarnishing his reputation, all these kids got put in a hole with a bullet in their head. It's hard for me to report on this. I know you guys want some good news, but it's hard, man. It's hard. It's the truth, and this is exactly how it happened. And no one else is going to give you the number of the infantry battalion where they're stationed, the name of their informant, but I just put it all on the table. So I hear you guys saying in the video sometimes that you guys are worried about me. Look, if anything is going to put me at risk, it's the video like this, okay? I'm calling, people in the government who are responsible for things, and they're still here. That general's still around. So a lot of people aren't talking about this because they don't want a bullet in their head. And the military could definitely get at me if they wanted to and just make it look like an accident. So, you guys take that into account when I bring you guys this information. It could cost me my life, something like this. And speaking of, it's a good deed to bring this information out. I know that it's a good deed.